That is super interesting. Andy Griffith started out acting in the Lost Colony play.
No way.
That is super neat. It's a prestigious place to act.
Yeah, so I didn't realize that. Again, this is me just not being an East Coaster by nature and not growing up out here. But I work with people, that are from North Carolina, and they're like, "Oh yeah, Lost Colony, Virginia Dare." I grew up learning about all that stuff. But that's super interesting that he started there. What a neat piece of history. Welcome to Talk with History. I am your host, Scott, here with my wife and historian, Jen.
Hello.
On this podcast, we give you insights into our history-inspired world travels, YouTube channel journey, and examine history through deeper conversations with the curious, the explorers, and the history lovers out there. Now, before we get into our main topic tonight, please feel free to give us a review wherever you listen. Just give us a shout out wherever you can, because the History Channel can't be the only one being well known in the history media world, because we're coming for them. Now, what's our topic for our audience tonight?
We're talking about the Lost Colony of Roanoke, and the first child born to the colonists was a girl.
That's right.
Virginia Dare.
Virginia Dare. Now, for the people who didn't pay attention to history class in high school and in college, tell me about the Lost Colony, because you make it sound like these people got here before the Pilgrims landed at Plymouth Rock. Yeah,
and this would be a great, drunk history, because it's really awesome. So this is, Jamestown is 1607. Plymouth is 1620. This is happening in 1580s.
Yep.
Right? Now, it's not the first colony really here in America, because you got St. Augustine in 1565. Mm-hmm. So what's happening is the Spanish are settling in Florida in 1565 and starting to build up their navy and starting to find gold and starting to find resources. And Queen Elizabeth is made aware of the power that the Spanish are getting from their American colony from Sir Walter Raleigh. He approaches her and says, the Spanish are really getting a lot of stuff over there. We should get over there. Maybe if we put a colony a little north of Florida, they at first wanted to go to the Chesapeake. Maybe we can commandeer those ships. Right. Maybe we can stop those ships.
So he's trying to convince the queen, hey, let me get out there, do a little swashbuckling, and I'll bring you back some cash.
Yeah. And she's, I do see them getting some resources, and they are becoming a world power that I got to kind of watch and be nervous about. If you think you can do this, Raleigh, go for it. I'll support you.
Yeah.
And so in 1585, they make their way to what is present day North Carolina, to Roanoke Island. And Roanoke is, if you go to the Outer Banks, there's these kind of islands that are basically thin islands on the Outer Banks of North Carolina. And there's an inlet between two of them that'll take you into a closer in island, and that's Roanoke. So it's not an outside island like Hatteras, right, but it's more inland. And so in 1585, he gets there. He sees the first peoples that are there that they encounter, the Algonquin. Mm-hmm. And it's really a friendly exchange. They're amazed to learn about each other. They're amazed to learn each other's culture. They trade, they learn. And so what is interesting is there was this mutual friendly relationship. And they build earthworks. So they dig in and they build some earthworks there. They build some forts there. Now, these are just men that came over from England, and they draw pictures of the Algonquin, and they take one of them with them, Manteo, to come back with them. And they go back to England with him. A year later, in 1587, another group of men come to Roanoke, to the fort, bring Manteo back. The Algonquin are there, and what happens this time is winter comes upon them, and they start to get hungry. Yep. They want the Algonquin to trade with them. The Algonquin are trying to feed their own people, and the British get upset, and they attack them and kill some of their leaders. And the Algonquin fight back and kill some of them. Well, the English are kind of just hunkering down when Sir Francis Drake kind of comes up the coast and sees them and says, would you like to come back? You need to ride back to England. They're like, yeah, let's all go back to England. So they take them back to England. But Raleigh doesn't want to give up. Raleigh is, we really have to establish a colony. We need to bring men and women. We need to start to build homes. We need to establish a colony in Roanoke. So he enlists John White to become the first governor of Roanoke. And John White gets together a group of people to go out to Roanoke Island. And I think it's 80 men, 17 women, and 10 children. One of those children is John White's daughter, Eleanor White. And she's married to Aeneas Dare.
One of the interesting things too, so this whole Lost Colony area, it's a national park. Got a great little center that kind of tells the whole story. There's a little theater. We sat there with the kids. And one of the cool things that I actually kind of liked, they had this room off to the side near the theater where it was playing, we show it in the video, there's like kind of shadows, silhouettes of the Queen, what I think was maybe Sir Walter Raleigh at one point, and then someone else. So you can kind of see him trying to convince the Queen. So that was neat. I used that in the video, kind of drive home a point. But one of the things that I really liked that you pointed out was they showed a map where all these settlers were from in London. Mm-hmm. So they actually show you what parts of London where Sir Walter Raleigh lived, and then basically where he recruited from around the greater London area, got him on a ship and said, hey, let's go settle the new world, probably with promises of, I don't know, the new land.
Milk and honey.
then they ventured their way out.
Yes. So they hit land in July of 1587. And I'll tell you why we know all of this as a fact. And then Virginia Dare is born August 18th, 1587.
Yeah, which means John White's daughter came over while she was pregnant.
Yeah. And she was heavily pregnant when they hit land. She's baptized 2 days later on August 20th. And they find the old earthworks that had been left by Sir Walter Raleigh.
Which is still there.
They're still there. And they kind of fix up the fort, and they build the homes for people, and they're starting to kind of get the lay of the land, and the Algonquins still kind of mad at them, but they're working it out. They're trying to work it out. But they realize fall is coming, winter's coming, that they don't have enough supplies. So they ask their governor, John White, to go back to England and bring back supplies. And he's hesitant, but of course he's like, absolutely, we want this colony to work. He doesn't want
to leave him there. I mean, his daughter's there, and his granddaughter, right?
She's young, couple months old.
Yeah.
But he does. He goes back to England. Now, the unfortunate circumstance that happens is England goes to war with Spain.
Yeah, as soon as John White gets over there and he shows up, he's like, hey, I got a couple things I need. They're like, hang on a second, we just got into a war with Spain.
Yeah, and we need every ship. So,
including that one you just came
back on.
Give me that ship there, John White. We got to go fight the Spanish.
And so John White spends the next 3 years trying to get a ship. And that's another of the conversations in the silhouettes you see in there, is he's pleading with everybody to help him find a ship to get back to the colony. And he eventually does, but it's 3 years later.
Yeah.
And he actually lands on Roanoke on Virginia Dare's birthday, her third birthday, August 18th, 1590. And nobody's there.
They had kind of worked out a system.
Yes.
That said, where they basically told him, like, hey, if we have to leave, here's what we're going to do.
So there was discussion about leaving because they couldn't find the resources there. And if you go to Roanoke, you'll see it's an island.
Yeah. So there's no fresh water.
There's no fresh water.
There's no rivers running through there.
There might be some game, but probably limited.
Yeah.
And so they initially wanted to land in the Chesapeake, like I had said, like they wanted, but their pilot of their ship had taken them further south.
Yeah.
And then he said he was afraid to go up to the Chesapeake because he thought a storm was coming in. So they had always talked about maybe going up to the Chesapeake. So that was one option. They had also said we might go further inland from Roanoke into North Carolina. That was another option. And they had always talked about going down to Croatoa.
Yep.
And Croatoa is modern day Hatteras. So that's on that outside islands a little bit more, and that the Croatoan people lived there. So when John White gets to the fort and everything has been taken down, it's not as if this was a burned down.
Yeah.
Everything had been taken down and moved and left. So people were taking all their resources. And in the middle of the fort on a post was the word carved into the post, Croatoan, the whole word. And then on a tree closer to the edge of the water was CRO.
Yep.
Like someone was going to carve Croatoan, but they carved CRO. And then that was on a tree, and in the fort was the post. So there are theories of what happened to the Lost Colony. Were they attacked by the Algonquin or any other First Peoples, and they were all killed and massacred? But again, John White found no evidence of destroying of the area, and there were no graves found. No bodies found, no graves found. People talk about disease. The disease come in and wipe them all out. Again, no graves found,
Yeah.
no homes are left behind. So more than likely, people believe that they did move. And of one of those three places, they went up to the Chesapeake, to where the Jamestown colony was founded eventually, inland to North Carolina, south to Hatteras.
He eventually tried to go to those spots.
So he tried to go to Croat because that's where they said they were going. That's Hatteras. That's a little bit further down of the Outer Banks. But again, a storm rolls in. And there is still fear, right? This is early navigation.
Yeah. And one of the things you mentioned too was that, I mean, that whole Hatteras area eventually became known as the graveyard of the Atlantic for a reason.
Yes.
Because people were constantly getting in shipwrecks out there because the sandbars were constantly shifting and
the shoals.
changing and all this stuff. So the fact that they can kind of get in and out as many times as these guys actually did, especially back then, was actually pretty incredible.
And so they don't go south looking for them, and John White has to go back to England. Never comes back again, never able to come back again, never able to find his daughter, his granddaughter, and no one knows what happened to the colony. It is the Lost Colony. Now, you do get Sir Walter Raleigh, who will eventually go down to Hatteras and look for them, but no evidence of the Lost Colony is ever found. So it's just an amazing story to tell, and then to honor Virginia Dare. And this is, like I said, this is how we know all of this, is because when John White came back, he was able to say, my granddaughter was born at Roanoke and we baptized her on August 20th. And all of that history survives through him, because if the colony was lost and he never came back, then no one would have known.
And even Virginia Dare, I mean, isn't it like Dare County?
Yes.
That's down there. So all of these characters.
And Manteo is the name of the city.
Is the name of the city. Mm-hmm. So all of these historical characters, I mean, they live on. To this day, the city is still called Manteo. Mm-hmm. The county is still Virginia Dare County. And visiting the park itself was actually kind of just a pleasant surprise. And one of the cool things that we saw at the theater was that plaque.
Yes, that Franklin Delano Roosevelt watched a production of The Lost Colony on August 18th. It was like 1930 something, but that's Virginia Dare's birthday.
Yeah, and so just the fact that FDR was there in Roanoke at the Lost Colony, a play of this. I mean, this has been a part of American culture for forever for us.
Yeah, and the name Virginia Dare kind of lives on.
That I thought was kind of interesting. It's this name that has this kind of mystique to it.
Yeah, it's kind of used for groups, feminism. It's used for rally cries. It's a kind of, it takes on its own meaning in different ways. But Virginia Dare's name has some symbolism to a new beginning, fresh start. Something. It's just very interesting that name has gone on, and even the garden there by the fort has a statue of what an adult Virginia Dare would look like.
Yeah, we didn't end up going into the garden because it was a little pricey for a family of 5. Yeah. But apparently that's one of those places where if you live close to it, if you go during the holiday season, they'll do like lights or Christmas lights or things like that. So it was like the Elizabethan Gardens or something. And then the town of Manteo was actually really nice. We went down there and walked around. Like, you could probably spend an entire day there just walking around doing kind of the typical touristy things. And then there was a ship, kind of, I don't know, it was a recreation of the same kind of ship.
Same kind of ship
that
from
they
the
would have brought over.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of parked across the way. We were down there relatively early in the season.
It's very boutiques and stuff, antique stores. And so you can spend a day in Manteo and walk around, and you can see the Lost Colony stage where they do a production of the whole Queen Elizabeth talking to Raleigh and the colonists coming over and their lives before they send John White back, and then what could have happened to them. That production has been going on for
a long time. And the theater is neat if you go back and watch our video, because the setting behind it is basically the beach and kind of the bay there across where Hatteras is across from there. But it was just a fun visit, an easy visit if you're ever in that area. Easy to find. So for most people, the Lost Colony may evoke images of a TV show or a movie. Travelers stranded on a desert island somewhere. You can just picture it in your mind. However, for those of you who study history, perhaps here with us tonight, you will know about the real-life travelers from England looking for a new life and new land of opportunities. And while we may never know what actually happened to those English settlers of the 1500s, we can look back and appreciate the path they forged for those that came later and settled this great land that we now call home. Thank you for listening to the Talk with History podcast, and please reach out to us at our website, talkwithhistory.com. But more importantly, if you know someone else that might enjoy this podcast or this video, please share it with them, especially if you think today's topic would interest a friend. Shoot them a text and tell them to look us up, because we rely on you, our community, to grow, and we appreciate you all every day. We'll talk to you next time.
Thank you.